This is where you've been enslaved. You've been enslaved and you're in bondage to the lie you were told in church that he's going to do it for you. That has you in bondage from doing it yourself. Has you in bondage for putting the effort. Has you enslaved to not taking ownership. Some of you are like, oh, you're disrespecting him. No, I am not. He did not put you here to do for you. What's come up quite a bit lately in the teachings, as well as, of course, in the Torah portion, as we started now in the book of Exodus and Shemot, is the idea of bondage. Slavery, okay? Now, I don't want you to think about slavery from the traditional, like people owning people, okay? That's not really the point I want to cover today. It's more like what owns you. Okay, most of us, I'm sure there's people in the world still that are slaves, okay? So I'm not minimizing that, but most of the world is not in that condition. Most of you listening to me right now are not in that condition. But are you still slaves? Or are you still in bondage? Because it talks about in Exodus, in Exodus, when we read in verses 6 through 8 in chapter 6, it talks about the 4 cups, the deliverance out of bondage. So what has you bound? I want you to be really looking this month at what controls you. Because if something's controlling you, then you don't have that authority. Then you don't have that freedom. Don't you think it's time to be set free? Now, I don't mean to laugh, but in some ways it's the simplest thing in the world. In other ways, it's the hardest, challenging thing in the world. But freedom is a choice. It's how you see the situation you're in. Not necessarily a choice when you're actually physically slaves. But in almost all of our lives, the case is that we've allowed ourselves to be enslaved to something, an emotion, a trauma, something, okay? And it has us in bondage. Maybe we're enslaved to a fear. Actually, that's probably most often the problem. And so I want us to really be, and I've said this quite a bit, hopefully you guys remember this, and if you're new, I'll be saying it for the first time, which is you have to start off the journey of growth, scriptural growth. I'm not just talking about personal development here. Because remember, the whole point of us existing is to transform and develop into him. So for anybody that doesn't like personal development, you're in the wrong place. I don't mean in the wrong place just with this ministry. I mean, you're generally in the wrong place. He created you to personally develop into him. Everything is personal development. But part of the personal development is you have to start off with the assessment phase. Okay, I taught that in the Level Up class. You guys should have had that. By the way, we have a course called Level Up. Go find it on the website under the resources tab on mtoi.org and take the class. It's free. But the first and most important thing that you have to do is you have to do an assessment. The assessment is what? Where am I now? In any of those 7 areas. Where am I spiritually? Okay, well, you got to assess that. Look at yourself, and I want you to look at yourself with an honest, not hypercritical, but just honest, sort of neutral, objective way, through that lens. Because some of you will look at yourselves through the lens of how your mother treated you, how your father treated you, how, somebody else looked down on you that you respected in some way, maybe an older sibling or something. I don't want you to look at yourself through somebody else's lens. You look at you through your lens. Try to be objective. That'll help set you free, by the way, from some of the built-in traumatized defaults that you have that are just wrong, okay? Now, so you have to do an assessment. Okay, you have to do an assessment. Now, this was not a problem initially for those that were coming out of Mitzrayim, out of Egypt. They knew they were physically slaves. However, they didn't realize how much bondage they were in the other areas of their lives. Because even once they were set free from physical bondage, they still had a lot of issues. When they came out of Egypt, it didn't just set everything right. And it wasn't because they weren't set free, it's because they had not freed their mind, Neo. Okay? They had not freed their minds. And by the way, that's the biggest thing that I want you to get out of this part of the conversation is this is something you need to do. I'm not telling you to stop praying. I'm telling you he's not going to do it for you. That's not the thing to ask him for. Ask him to help you do it. Ask him to help you see it Ask him to help you have the strength to look at yourself right, see the things that have been that have had you bound, see the things that have you enslaved. Because you're enslaved to wrong thinking. You're enslaved to wrong feelings about things. You're enslaved to previous expectations and wrong expectations about life, about you, about other people. And it's ruining your relationship spiritually with him. It's ruining your relationships with other people, spouses, siblings, parents, friends, coworkers, whatever. It's ruining, your community life. Wrong thinking and all that other stuff, ruining your finances, ruining your health. And so it's time to take an assessment and then receive the information. I want you to do the assessment, but then you have to receive it. It's like some of you, let's say you went to a doctor. Now, of course, I know a lot of you don't trust doctors, but let's say you went to one that absolutely 100% was only going to tell you the truth. But would you receive it, though? A lot of you hear things, but you can't receive. Spiritual things, relationship things, health-related things, mental health-related things, financial things, you just don't receive. Own that. See, all of you I know you want to do this. You want to do what's pleasing in his sight. That's what everybody always says. I just want to do what's pleasing in his sight. Well, you can't do I want to unless you're in control of I. Does it make any sense? I just want to do what's pleasing in his sight. Well, that can't happen if somebody else is pushing you around and you're in bondage and slaves to something. You have to fully control the I. You can't submit yourself unless you have full authority over self. So I want you to really do this month. It's not as much the growing part, but the assessment part. Figure out what has you in bondage. So how do you know? So you might say, well, Rabbi, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know. How about let's simply do it this way. Look for any area or any aspect of the 7 areas that are struggles for you. You're struggling in your finances. You're struggling in your spiritual. You're struggling in your relationships. You're struggling with your mental health, emotional health, whatever it is. What are you struggling with? If you're struggling, there's probably, I know this is going to sound so Christian, but I want you to think, I don't want to trigger you now into the wrong mindset. I don't want you to go there. You're looking at a stronghold. But it's not an outside stronghold imposed on you. That's what Christianity told you. It's an internal stronghold that you have built. Okay? Anybody know the song, The Wall, Pink Floyd? That wall was built by who? A person. He built the wall. Nobody else built the wall. Okay? Now, if you don't know the song, it's okay. You don't have to go listen to it. I'm just saying but if you know that picture, the individual who's the main character of the song, because he's not dealing with life properly, ends up building a wall. And that wall prevents him from interacting with the world in a right way and receiving information in a right way. So you guys really need to deal with your strongholds, and it's not through a deliverance ministry. It's accomplished by you looking at you and recognizing what is keeping you in bondage. Where is the struggle? What is the struggle? And so that's how I want you to go about this. Look at, starting with spiritual. Do you feel like your prayers are just hitting the ceiling? Do you feel like you're not walking this out? You feel like you struggle to obey any of the commandments? Where is the struggle? And then say, okay, I struggle with this. Now you have to go, why do I struggle with this? Is it because I've had some wrong thinking? Is it because I have wrong emotions attached to something? Is it because I've given authority to somebody to speak that into my life and I listen to them? Don't blame them. Blame you for listening. Then repent of it, let it go, and stop listening. Okay? If you turn out to be the problem, which you will, be nice to yourself, but stop doing it. Fix the problem. Okay? I don't want you beating yourself up. I want you just recognizing, oh my gosh, I'm the problem. Instead of being, and get all mad. I'm the problem, and I'm just awful, and I'm a loser, and I'm this, and I'm... No. You were maybe all of that. And if you continue, you'll still be all of that. Or you could choose to stop being all of that. Okay? And that's really the key. So I want you to really do the effort, the honest evaluation, and look at where you're struggling. If it's in your finances, it's got to be one of two things. Either you're spending wrong or you're not making enough or some combination. I mean, there's only two ways you can have a financial problem, okay? Spending or income. If your relationships are challenged, stop blaming just the other person. What part is you? There's got to be a part that's you. Even if just the part that's you is that you shouldn't be in it. Some of you are in very toxic relationships and don't realize that you can leave them. Or you can set up boundaries. I'm not even just talking about husbands and wives. I'm talking about sometimes it's parents, children. Some of you have toxic children. Some of you have toxic parents. Some of you have toxic siblings. Some of you have toxic friends. They're really not your friends. If they're your friends, they wouldn't be toxic. But I know them so long, but they're toxic. It's time to let them go. Sometimes you got to leave Egypt. Okay, that's what the picture is. And be set free. You know, in John 8, we all know the verse that says, and you shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free. What truth is he talking about? Truth in general. So you know the truth about your relationships, that'll set you free to make the right choices. You know the truth about your spiritual life, that'll set you free to make the right choices. You know the truth about your relationships, that'll set you free. Your finances, that'll set you free. Your mental health, your emotional health, your community life, it'll set you free. Because you are in bondage. I mean, why would you need to be set free? The truth will set you free means that you are, until you have that, not free. Does that make any sense to anybody? Stop being slaves to whatever that is that has you in bondage. Recognize the sovereignty you should have over self. And then once you have that sovereignty fully, you can submit it to him. You struggle in submitting to him because you don't have full control of your sovereignty at the moment. You're too highly influenced still by people, your past history, traumas, dramas, whatever, okay, emotions. But I don't like that. But I want this. The craving, right, the desire. You know, Paul says you desire and don't have, and that's part of why you struggle. This is a huge problem for us, right? But the biggest problem is not knowing what the problem is. You know, when you guys come and talk to us, Elder and I will talk to you guys, and we'll talk about, you know, trying to dig underneath to figure out what the actual problem is, not the issue you're complaining about. Do you understand that 99% of the time, probably, your issue is the symptom? The thing you're complaining about is the symptom. The thing you're struggling with is the symptom. I am giving you such nuggets right here. They're simple. But if you would own these things and recognize 99% of your trouble, struggles, and everything else is with a symptom. Underneath it is the problem. Stop being distracted by the symptom. Be open to receive the truth about the problem, which means that you might have to be willing to look at yourself and be a little disappointed. But if you can recognize that it's fixable, because if you can cause it, you can fix it. I don't know how. You figure it out. Do you know that he put you here with a brain, with a certain incredible range of skill sets and abilities to figure things out? I mean, that's, you know, when you're a child, it takes you a minute to figure out that you can control your hand. Like it's moving around. You realize, wait a minute, I have control over that. You ever watch a baby when they first kind of look at their hand weird, like I have control over this? And then we forget that we have control over things because we start being pushed around by everything, whether it's ideas or people or something, right? Circumstances, situations. We think all of that stuff is controlling us. Well, you don't understand, Rabbi. I live in this town and there's no work. I don't understand why you can't move. Oh, you don't understand. Why can't you move? I mean, I literally have people tell me this kind of thing on a regular basis. Well, the housing where I live is just out of control. There are places where it's not, where it's more affordable. I mean, for example, you could live in Cleveland, Tennessee. The costs are very different than living in like Chicago, Atlanta, New York City, LA, whatever. Pick a big city, okay? The costs are not the same. What about jobs? Well, it depends on what your industry is. There are probably parts of the country that have those jobs available, even if they're not available where you live. Or you might recognize that you need to just retool. Oh, but that would be a lot of work. Well, seems like it'd be a lot of sucky work just to stay where you are if you don't like it. Then why wouldn't you put in the work? And by the way, the journey is part of the, well, I shouldn't even say that. The journey is the main point. Watching you do the work is kind of the main point. Well, Rabbi, I'd have to go back to school and I'd have to take years. And, well, guess what? If it's going to take you 4 years to do something, you know what you're going to be in 4 years? Older with or without that skill. So if something takes you 4 years and you don't do it, but it's going to take 4 years, then you're 4 years older without it. If something takes 4 years and you do it, then 4 years later you have it. It is what it is. See, we have, unfortunately, this myopic problem of, I can't see that far, I need it now. Which is part of how we get into so much trouble, especially financially, because we have this impossible struggle against delayed gratification. We have to have it now. I want it now. I don't want something that's going to take years. You know, it is what it is. Wait a minute, we're all in a thing called the walk, which we're waiting on a Messiah who is coming back sometime. In other words, we don't know. So should we just give up because it's not happening now? They were going to go to the land, and they were like, okay, you guys messed it up. Now it's going to be 40 years. So should everybody have quit? That's 40 years, not 4. These things are all, the power's in your hands. The power is in you. No, I'm not being all new age or anything. The power's in you because he gave you that power. You know, Deuteronomy, when it says, when you've eaten and satisfied, right, your things are going well and you've built houses and everything, don't forget who gave you the power in you for you to create that wealth. He didn't create it for you. So you have it in you to do these things. It is in there. You have all the things necessary to get where you need to go. It may take a minute. You may have to struggle against all kinds of bad habits, which came from bad emotional and mental thinking. Remember the process. Thoughts, when they get attached to emotions, eventually turn into actions. When repeated over and over again, become habits. You got a lot of bad habits. You got to make new ones and break the old ones. But you got to start off with recognizing, and this is, you know what? You're going to have to get, I'm going to quote from a movie, you have to get mad as hell and not want to take it anymore. Okay? Howard Beale. You guys remember that? From the movie Network? Broadcaster, for those who don't know, on a TV news station, lost his mind. He just had enough. And he popped his cork, and he just started yelling at the TV, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. And he wanted everybody else to stand up and scream, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to. Some of you are all mad that I said the word hell. Well, get over it. Okay? But you need to get mad. You need to say, I'm not doing this anymore. You know what? Maybe pull up that clip, because some of the things he said, you should hear that. It doesn't necessarily have to be applied to what he was applying it to. Okay? But I want you to apply it just to you. He's directing it to the whole world, the system and everything else. Just say, you know what? I've had enough of being this me. At least parts of this me, right? I need to become that next level me that's more like him. You know, I've tried to tell you guys who struggle financially, and I have conversations on a regular basis with people with their children who are in their 40s, let's say, who are struggling at 40. If you're struggling at 45, what do you think 65 is going to look like? Okay? I mean, you need to be running around like your hair's on fire trying to fix the problem. But you should be doing that in all of the areas of your life. Where's the urgency? Well, we get tolerant. We can tolerate so much pain, and we can tolerate so many things not working up to whatever level. We become, comfortable in our discomfort. Tony Robbins teaches all the time that you will always end up at the level of tolerance. Okay? Because if you didn't tolerate it, you would elevate. So you'll always descend to that bottom level is where that's as much as you can take, and that's what you'll tolerate. And unless it gets worse than that, you're not going to do anything. So what happens is the overachievers of the world never feel like they've arrived. They can't tolerate stagnancy. Okay? They have to be doing something to elevate. All right? Look, I'm not bragging in any way, but I'm telling you, ask my wife. I spend every day for hours watching things to elevate me. I've always been that way. That doesn't mean I don't goof off sometimes, sure. But every day I spend hours on some area of those 7 areas elevating. Watching videos, reading something, listening to something that will elevate. Because I know I haven't arrived yet. There's always ways for me to have a better spiritual life. Certainly make sure that I'm focusing on my health. Certainly to make sure that my finances are good. Certainly my relationships, absolutely. I'm working harder on my marriage now than when we first got married because I want it to be great all the way until whatever, okay? There's no complacency there. But you can get comfortable. And you can get comfortable with some things that are pretty painful. Or if somebody else told you their life was your life, you'd be like, oh my gosh. But yet it's your life. And you allow it. We are small g gods, so to speak. In other words, you have the ability to cause and allow in your own life. Not in other people's lives. And he has the power to cause and allow in all lives. But you can cause things to happen in your life, and you can allow things to happen in your life. You can also cause things not to happen in your life. He wants us to have we are a shadow of what he is, but everything he is, we are. He creates, we create. Right? So we are a shadow of a shadow, just to kind of keep it in a very low scale. I don't want anybody's mind going in the wrong direction. But that shadow of a shadow means that whatever he can do, we can do too in a small way. But are we even doing that? I mean, are you doing that? Some of you, I said it before about maybe you need to move. Do you ever look at Israel? I mean, we're reading about it now. They're about to go to a lot of different locations. Go read Numbers 33 and see everywhere they went. Okay, it lists all of them right there. They moved a lot. And by the way, it wasn't at convenient times either. We're like, okay, we're done here. Let's go move here. It's whenever that pillar moved. Okay, the cloud moved, they had to move. Sometimes it was months and months. Sometimes it was a couple of days. I mean, really. Whenever it moves, it's like, oh, here we go. And by the way, on the one hand, if it was short, they'd be like, we just got here. On the other hand, they got comfortable if it was long, thinking, but we're comfortable. It's like, stop being comfortable. Keep moving. You got to keep moving. Okay, you guys, I mean, if I could find a way to inspire and light a fire, I'd go up to each one of you and just pump some of that into you somehow. You know what I want you to be afraid of? I want you to be afraid of, I heard this once, I thought it was the most inspiring, brilliant thing, scared me, is that his idea of hell was when you die, meeting the you could have been if you had put in the effort. That should scare you. Because that should break your heart more than scare you. That would crush you to realize, oh my gosh, I want to look exactly like that person. You understand what I'm saying? I want to be everything the me could have been so that if I meet that person, it's me. Not some shadow of what I could have been. Okay? Now, no, you can't go back in time to bring you to whatever, but the you can maximize too, because it's not all about your financial bank statement or something. It's about the who you become. Who are you as a being? And how would that match up to the you could be? Are you still struggling with your emotions? Are you still struggling with your mental health? Are you still struggling with your relationships, which are part of all of that? Are you still struggling spiritually and in terms of trusting and obeying him? Where's the struggle? Because the you're supposed to be and could be and should be isn't struggling with those things anymore. You know what I said? Don't think the you should be would never have struggled with those things. No, you were supposed to have struggled with those things. The you should be no longer struggles. Remember, to he who overcomes teaching, the one who overcomes all these things receives all the rewards. So struggle, but struggle and overcome. Be victorious. I love all these Christians out there, all teaching and everything about, we need to claim we're victorious. Well, you haven't done anything yet. What are you victorious over? Because you believe in Messiah in whatever form you believe in him, that's not victory. Victory is hearing, well done, good and trustworthy servant. That's victory, okay? Victory is that end result at the end, whatever your end is, because, we all have different timelines for our end. Whenever he shows up, that'll be what the timeline is, but, you may not be around when he shows up. Okay? He may not show up in your lifetime. I'm not one out here like the rest of them going, oh, it's the end times. Everybody says that. Every generation says that. I get exhausted hearing that. Do you know the apostles all said the same thing? They all thought it was the end times. So I guess in some sense, for all of you and all of us, it is the end times. In other words, it's your end times. Figure it out. Get moving. Get it done. You don't know how much time you have. So let's figure out what has us in bondage. There's thought processes that have you in bondage. There's emotions that have you in bondage. There's habits that have you in bondage. There are relationships that have you in bondage. Not because they have you in bondage, but because you have chosen to let them have you in bondage. Remember, all of these things you have caused or allowed, not them. Stop being the victim and blaming. You got a relationship that's a problem, fix it or get out. Create boundaries. You got some habits that are a problem, fix them. Stop doing them. You got a thought process or a tendency to think certain ways that really screw you up, stop thinking like that. Well, I don't know how to do all that. There are tools that are out there. Okay? A lot of you will come to me. Why? You come to me because you think I know the answers. All right? So why would I have answers, though? Because I've studied these things for like 40 plus years. Why can't you study them? It was not easy when I first studied them. There wasn't the internet. You couldn't just ask Google anything or some AI anything. You had to go to the bookstore and see if you could find a book that worked or the library or something. You couldn't YouTube anything. If you wanted to hear anybody speak, you had to pay and go to a seminar or buy their recorded stuff. It hasn't never been easier to do these things. Anything you want to know about that you struggle with, somebody's put something out there that will help you. Multiple somebodies with multiple somethings. Well, that sounds like a lot of work, Rabbi. It is. It is. Why are you so afraid of the work? What else you got to do? Sit around and be miserable? Are you that busy? Oh, you don't understand, Rabbi. I'm so busy. I promise you, everybody tells me they're busy. If we sat down and looked at every day over like a period of a month, what you did with your time, you're not that busy. There is free time. The only way you're not busy is if you're actually doing what I just said. If you are actually working on all these things, then you're busy. But if you're not, it's because you just have too much free time on your hand that you filled with things that are a waste of time, that are not going to get you where you want to go. Look, as much as I told you that I do, I know I waste a lot of time. Now, maybe in your mind, if we compared notes, you wouldn't think so. There's still more I could be doing. There's still time that I'm not making effective use of. And by the way, play is effective use in the right amounts at the right times as part of the resting and refreshing that you need. Okay, you do need some relaxation time. Okay, entertainment, some sort of fun time. Okay, we need that. But is that time in the right amount? Okay, how much do you actually need? Okay? So for example, let's say we're doing something where we chopped a bunch of wood and we want to move that wood from one side over here where we chopped it over to stack it over there. And at some point, I get winded and I tell the person with me, I need a break. Okay, how much of a break do you think I need? 3 hours? If I'm just winded? Do I need a day or two? Or do I need like a few minutes to catch my breath, maybe have a sip of water, and then I get back to it? You understand what I'm saying? Make sure the break is not longer than the effort. You just got to know you, though. You got to understand what you need. I know a lot of times it comes up, people say, well, Rabbi, we know that when you need a break, you might go on a cruise or something. But I bring my work with me. Because I'm not done growing, I bring either something for me to develop or something that has to do with you guys in teaching. So ask Rabbiton. Always, I bring my laptop, books, things, whatever, to the cruise and I work. Some of you are like, why would you waste your time? Why would you? Because that's what I like to do, because I like to grow. I've turned it around where that is the most fun thing for me. That is my joy. That re-energizes me, focusing on growth. I'd have nothing to tell you on a Rosh Chodesh if I hadn't studied all of that for years and years and years. I don't know what other people do. I don't know if Rosh Chodesh doesn't say anywhere it's supposed to be about personal development. But to give an encouraging word. But I started off, when I first found out about personal development, my dream was to be that guy out there on a stage somewhere producing materials that would help impact people's lives in a positive way, help them have the tools to change and grow. I get to do that. I didn't know it was going to look like this. I didn't know it was going to be in a spiritual context. I think it's so much more beautiful that it's in this context, more powerful, more important. But you know what? You guys can walk around all you want telling me, oh, wow, Rabbi, that was so good. No, it wasn't unless you use it. Don't tell me how good the sermon was yesterday, the message, because there was some powerful stuff in that if you're not going to use it. I could care less if you were impressed, entertained, or wowed. I want you to do. And by the way, do doesn't mean I told you specifics. I gave you tools. I gave you insights. I gave you distinctions. I gave you mind-opening stuff so that you would then say, oh, how can I take this in my life? As opposed to telling you, do this, do that, do that. He doesn't do that, okay? He gives you specific things. I want you to keep the Sabbath, and I don't want you to work, but then you sit there going, well, what do I do with the whole day? He wants you to find a way to connect with him, all right? He gives you concepts more often than not. There are some things that are specifics, like when he says, I don't want you to, eat these specific things, right? Very few things that are specifics, but in life we have those too, right? Mom says, don't touch that, it's hot. So you learn. But most things are conceptual, like let this mind be in you, the way of thinking that's in Messiah, Philippians 2:5. Let this mind be in you, conceptual. Some of the commandments sound very straightforward, but they're not. The concept of do not steal. Well, there's so many ways you could steal. Only some of them are actually going over to somebody, taking something that's theirs and taking it away from them. And so we do have some sections of Leviticus and other places that describe ways we could steal or ways we can murder, or ways we can commit adultery, or ways we can, do idolatry. All of those commandments are kind of expounded on between Leviticus 16 and 20, okay, or 17 and 20. But mostly he wants us to get the concepts, because those are the things that help to mold us into his image. Because with the concepts and the framework, then we make choices and decisions that fit within the context of that framework, okay? It doesn't have to be that, some of you come looking for those very specific answers. Well, how do I do this? I don't know. Now, when I say I don't know, I know how I would do it. And if I don't know how I would do it, I know how I'd go about trying to find out, but I don't know how you would do it. I don't know how you would go about finding out, but you need to figure that out, okay? I told a story. I heard somebody once in a podcast was talking about how their child would come up to them and ask, Dad, could you do this for me? And the father said, no, darling, I love you too much to do that for you. Because if I did that for you, you wouldn't learn how to do it. The ministry tells you that on a regular basis, then you get mad at us. The Creator tells you that on a regular basis, you get mad at him. Because everybody wants it done for them. I want you to really set your mind on, I'm going to do everything myself with his inspiration and guidance. And the things I can't, I'll look to him for. He didn't put you here to sit back and let him do it. I listened to some service the other day, and I couldn't believe them. It was the typical Christian nonsense of basically looking to God to do everything for you. And just sit back and let him take care of it. Just, stop fussing and fretting. He'll just take care of it for you. No, he won't. There's nowhere in Scripture that says that. Now, we do have verses that say when you get between the actual rock and hard place and there isn't anything to do, like Moses and Israel by the sea, then he said, stand still. But that stand still wasn't stand still, don't do anything. That was because there wasn't anything they could have done anyway. It was stop fussing and fretting, calm down. Okay, hush, and see the deliverance of Yah. But you notice Yahweh didn't get involved until they got to places where they couldn't do. Okay? And by the way, when they whined and complained about some of the stuff, I don't know that they actually were at the place where they couldn't. That's why they ended up in all kinds of problems when they whined and complained. All right? You remember what happened when they were saying, well, we don't like this manna anymore. We're hungry. Well, no, you had food. Well, we don't like this food. He said, fine. You want quail? I'll give you quail till it comes out your nose. Pretty picture. That shows you Yah's feelings about us whining. Okay? He says that whining is as rebellion. Literally, it says that. How much whining are you doing? Catch yourself. Are you whining about any of the 7 areas? Well, about your health or your wealth or the relationships or this or that. Stop whining. Do something about it. If there's nothing you can do, then he says, hush, be still. My favor is sufficient. Be still. He's either going to deliver you from it or he wants you to be okay with it. His choice. Stop whining. We're supposed to become adults of Israel, the grown-ups. Children whine. Okay, adults don't whine. Can we agree to that? But yet we do it all the time. Stop whining about everything. Well, that's not right. That's not fair. I don't understand. Blah, blah, blah. It sounds like that, I'm sure, to him, just like it does to me when I hear it. I'm like, enough already. Handle it. Stop. This is where you've been enslaved. You've been enslaved and you're in bondage to the lie you were told in church that he's going to do it for you. That has you in bondage from doing it yourself. Has you in bondage for putting the effort. Has you enslaved to not taking ownership. Some of you are like, oh, you're disrespecting him. No, I am not. He did not put you here to do for you. Do you understand that? Nowhere in Scripture did he say he made you to do for you. He made you to see what you would do. We agree on that? Hear that again. He didn't make you to do for you. He made you to watch you do, to see what you would choose to do. Like, okay, I made you. There you go. Here's an earth with all these resources, and I gave you all this. What are you going to do with it? Right? Let's see. It's like you give a kid, here's some paper, here's some crayons, here's some markers, whatever. What are you going to do with it? Let's see what you do with it. The kid may just start drawing on the paper. Kid may fold the paper up and make it into something and then color it or something. I mean, who knows? Well, I don't know what to do with it. Whatever you want. I want to watch and see what you do with it. You know. One of the things I loved that the Chabad did when I had the children were in the Chabad when they were little, and for Hanukkah, they'd have dads come in, okay, to make menorahs, okay, Hanukkahs. And they gave a bunch of stuff they would get from like a Home Depot or a Michael's, just all kinds of crafty things, pieces of wood, nuts and bolts, beads and different things, just all kinds of, just a mess of stuff. And then the kids would come in and the dads were there and there was glue and there was paint and there was just make it anything you want. Make something that holds 8 candles, 9 candles really, okay? Make something. I mean, anything? Yeah. And some of the most amazing things were made, okay? Actually, we got to see something like that here. Some of the teenagers have made this incredible Lego Hanukkah, okay? And the thing is, and I remember growing up in Hebrew school, I made them out of clay, out of wood, in different shapes and different configurations and, you know, whatever. But the thing is, he wants to see what you will do, okay? You have the raw materials. And so don't be disappointed in him. It's not like he didn't give you what you need. You were born with what you need. Oh, no, I was born in a terrible family. No, what you need is inside. You can affect the outside yourself. I was born in a bad family, but you're not there now. You don't stay there forever, although some of you need to get out of your parents' houses ASAP. Okay? Get out on your own. Well, I don't know how to do that. Well, don't do it just to do it. Figure out how to do it. Make it a priority. I'll tell you the same thing I told my children when they were 17. I said, you need to be planning ahead because you can only grow, keyword, up to a certain point in my house. Not because I will do anything. It's just you can't do certain things in your growth in somebody else's authority and in their house. You need to go out there and figure out your own authority in your own house, apartment, whatever it is, where you're now having the responsibilities that you wouldn't have in somebody else's house. Those are experiences you can't duplicate in any other way. You have to go out and have that experience for yourself. All right? So let's stop expecting that we're here so he can do for us. We're here, and we're not even here to do for him. He doesn't need anything. Well, I just want to serve him. No, he wants you to become him. Okay? He had priests to serve him. He wants you to become him. Does that make any sense to anybody? Okay, I just dropped every microphone drop I can think of. Okay? So I hope that works for you, all right?